Well, the question remains here on Orange and Blue today. It is Cecil, Lammey, Andrew Mason, our wonderful hard rock music, and the question of the day on game day: can Bo Nix bounce back in this one after a 3-touchdown, 3-interception performance against the Indianapolis Colts, Mace? What's your confidence level that Bo Nix will bounce back?
Well, maybe the bounce back already started to happen. Maybe it happened after his third interception against the Colts on Sunday and rebounding with better form from there. Of course, with an aid from the other two phases of the team, because he got some short fields, which helped lead to a couple of touchdown passes. But perhaps he's already taken those first steps. Sometimes you don't recognize the steps you've taken to getting somewhere until you're a little bit down the road. Sometimes, like, you can go forward, but you don't know if you've taken those steps. And then you realize, oh yeah, I actually am at this point, and I didn't realize it yet. And that could be where Bo Nix is in terms of bouncing back from an opening 2/3 of the game that were frankly ghastly.
Yes, and momentum can carry over. And on a short week, Mace, I mean, I really believe this thing can carry over. And it's not as simple, because I've seen some people on social networking doing this, like, well, they played this team before, and it'll be just like that game. No.
Yeah,
This league isn't built like that.
Doesn't work that way.
Aren't the same either. We'll talk Broncos defense in a little bit, but we're starting with Bo, because we always start with Bo. Yeah, he'll be different. He'll be better, in my opinion. And Marvin Mims wasn't the same player he was. Let's just start there, Mace. Marvin Mims wasn't this Marvin Mims the last time these guys played.
Wasn't a Marvin Mims Jr. who's gaining confidence because they found a role for him on offense, a viable task. And, we talked about the running game yesterday extensively, and specifically the running backs. But if you're trying to find success on the ground wherever it can come from, yeah, it has to involve Marvin Mims Jr. as well. He's been pretty effective, but maybe this is where you test how far he's come in terms of being productive with a handoff in the backfield. Maybe this is the time to take that next step, because you're without Jaleel McLaughlin in this game. Maybe part of the solution there, and it does help Bo Nix, because as Sean Payton has said, one of the things that supports a young quarterback well is a good ground game. Maybe part of it is, do you give Marvin Mims Jr. some of those plays that were designed for Jaleel McLaughlin? And if you can get some explosiveness there, that can take the pressure off too.
So what you're saying, Mace, is something we didn't say yesterday in an entire 30-minute show on the ground game. They still have a 3-headed running back by committee. It's just Marvin being the third or even the second. Poor Audric Estime. Is he not even going to get any touches until after Marvin? Is Marvin going to be the number 2?
I do still hope this is a chance to feature Audric Estime, because not only is he more effective on a per-carry basis than Javonte Williams, you have to find out about him.
Oh, yeah. Mm-hmm.
Like you said yesterday, if you're going to go into this offseason, and we're going to start talking about evaluating Ashton Jeanty, evaluating Marion Hampton, evaluating Devin Neal, and the others in this stacked running back class, at least get a good look at what you got. No, because you don't need to go shopping elsewhere. If you go in the closet and find what you're looking for, you don't have to go out and get it, right?
Right.
Like, that was going back to why you should re-sign Garett Bolles. You've got the answer right there. You got a pretty good answer. You don't have to go shopping.
Right.
You've got it right there amongst stored in the goods in the back. You don't have to go out and get more.
Yep. Yep. And Bo Nix, it's on you to continue your momentum going forward. I think Devon Vele, when you said it the other day, we had you on Dover and Cecil, and you're like, Devon Vele has 1 catch in the month of December.
Yeah.
I was like, holy crap, you're right. I hope he has 1 catch a quarter, at least, against the Chargers, and finish this game with like 4 or 5 catches, 6, 7 targets. Not force-feeding Mace, but it's almost like that's the plan. How do you make Bo more comfortable? You go to a guy that catches almost everything thrown his way.
Yeah. Get him involved. He actually did get involved the last time the Broncos played the Chargers. that was a game where I think you really started to say, okay, maybe we can start making some Tim Patrick comps here. Remember, it was right after Josh Reynolds got injured and you were looking for something. And certainly Vele showed enough to where the Broncos were comfortable moving on from Josh Reynolds earlier this month. But the last couple of games, the productivity hasn't been there. Now, it's almost like as the offense goes, Devon Vele goes. And the offense hasn't been particularly effective as a unit. And so I think Vele, a rookie, still learning, still finding his way, has kind of gotten caught up in that a little bit.
Yeah, gotten caught up in it a little bit. We'll see if that happens there. And with Bo Nix, it's just, kind of settling him down. This is where the ground game can help as well. And we've seen it a couple of times, not that often, Mace, where I don't want to say Nix is a little nervous, but he's a little amped up to make some throws. And in the last game against the Colts, when he was targeting Marvin Mims, those passes were high. It took great catches from Marvin to haul those things in. What if you put it in the breadbasket? Help out Marvin with some run after the catch ability. I'd say the same thing about Vele. Put it in his breadbasket, man, and Bo can do that.
Setting up guys to succeed. That's actually one of the reasons why you like Bo Nix, is because even though you had a relatively controlled pass game at Oregon, he would set guys up for yardage after the catch. Of course, there's more separation, there's more space at the college level than there is in the NFL because the quality of defenders at the college level just doesn't compare. It's not in the same galaxy. But the concepts and what you're trying to do at its base element, that's the same. And let's see if they can set it up better than they have. I mean, you've got to find explosives. And especially this past game against Indianapolis, they weren't there. Offensively, it's funny to look at a game where you scored 31 and say that was really kind of the worst the offenses look. But I think in the totality of it, that probably was the worst offensive game the Broncos have had. Certainly, they were bailed out by special teams in the defense. One defensive touchdown, one touchdown off a short field set up by an interception, one touchdown off a short field set up by a 61-yard punt return. The three phases help, but make no mistake. I mean, the offense did not lift its share of the burden last Sunday. Not even close.
Yeah. So as we get into how does the offense jumpstart things, let's play this from Sean Payton. And any sort of wrinkles coming, here's what Payton had to say.
I think it's important to really look closely at not over-installing, making sure the guys know what they're getting by heart, plays that they know. And so be some wrinkles.
The wrinkles are the old stuff, Mace. That's what
Maybe.
It is. They're going to play the greatest hits. So I'm going in breaking routes for Courtland Sutton. That's a hit. I'm going out routes for Devon Vele. That's a hit.
That's a hit.
Marvin Mims. We might see that play again. I'm not saying 93 yards, but we might see that play again where Marvin Mims took it to the house. I mean, just go with what guys are comfortable with.
Or Marvin Mims wheel route. That's a hit.
Yep. Have him in the backfield.
Yeah. Mike McGlinchey said on Tuesday, play the hits. That's what you do. You don't want to tip your game plan, but at the same time, you got to stick with what is your most reliable element in this. Chargers are probably thinking the same thing. And
Sure.
So that certainly sets up a potential for another low-scoring game because the Chargers, if the Chargers know the Broncos are going to play the hits and the Broncos know the Chargers are going to play their hits, certainly I think they'll adapt accordingly, which is maybe a reason why you looked at the Rams and 49ers last week and at the end of the night, you had a game without a touchdown. Al Michaels did not seem as displeased watching that game without a touchdown as he did watching the Broncos and Colts a couple of years back.
Right.
Without a touchdown. I think maybe it was because he was still in California. Al doesn't strike me as somebody who likes leaving California very often anymore, which is why he probably was the most thrilled person on the planet at this Broncos game being moved to Thursday night, because instead of having to get on a plane and go cover Browns Bengals in Ohio, all he has to do is get his car service or whatever and go on down to SoFi from Brentwood or wherever he's living,
Yeah. Well, it's easy peasy, right?
Yeah. He can have his favorite. He can go to his favorite steakhouse where apparently he's eaten like thousands of times without ever having a vegetable.
Okay. And by the way, Chargers' third game in 11 days.
Yeah.
So people are like, "Oh, I'm so upset they moved this game." All right. It's the Chargers' third game in 11 days. I can't get 3 games of Madden in 11 days, mate. I can't imagine playing actual football 3 times in a little over 10 days, like 11 days, man.
Well, I mean, even young players only start to feel back to themselves by Wednesday.
Yes.
Okay. So now you're stacking a shorter week on top of an already short week. You know, there were a lot of reasons why Sean Payton was willing to waive the Broncos' option of not playing 2 Thursday night short week games in the season. That's the thing. The Broncos could have said no to this game. Said, nope, we don't want to have another Thursday night road game. We're going to pass.
Right.
Instead, he said, sure. Now, some of that is, I think he gets excited about prime time like anybody else does. Hey, if you're getting tapped for an extra nationally televised primetime game, it's a positive thing. It means that you're considered to be watchable. But I think the other thing there is you had the Chargers, like you said, 3 games in 11 days. And then, of course, you're making the Bengals, who you play next week, they're going to play you on a 6-day short week because, as expected, Broncos-Bengals was moved to Saturday in that middle spot of the triple header that's going to take place on that day. Broncos in the 2:30 p.m. Mountain Time slot. So you force the Bengals onto a shorter week instead, and for that game, and the Broncos are going to have 9 days after this. And so that's another thing. The Broncos, you know, they helped themselves out a little bit. They managed to create, by taking this Thursday night game, they managed to create 2 games in which they have a rest and recuperation advantage because the Chargers had 3 games in 11 days. And of course, the Broncos were on a bye 11 days ago. And then the Bengals are going to have a 6-day week while the Broncos have a 9-day week. So we'll see how it plays out on the scoreboard, but it sets up pretty nicely. But that being said, you know, the Broncos, you know, it doesn't always work. Like the Broncos got the Steelers into black jerseys on a hot day at Empower Field at Mile High in week 2. And didn't mean the Broncos won that game. They lost at 13-6. So, you know, doesn't always work.
Also, they went out to West Virginia where we were, and like Sean made that decision, and it did work, but it worked in a way we did not expect. Thank you, Mother Nature.
Yeah, that you got to practice dodging raindrops, and then you go to New Jersey on Sunday and play a game in the rain.
Yeah,
just kind of worked out that way. But hey, let's also say there are factors beyond your control helping you. Sometimes you get Jonathan Taylor dropping the ball at the goal line. Sometimes you get Greg the Leg Zuerlein missing a game-winning kick in the last moment.
Yep.
You know,
and sometimes not having it blocked, with just blocked field goal, right? Sometimes it happens to you.
That's not luck, though. That's skill and preparation. That's the Chiefs looking at the film, finding the weak spot there on that side of the scheme and exploiting it. I don't believe the Chiefs beating the Raiders when the Raiders put the ball on the ground. That's luck, like that, on a play that probably should have been blown dead.
Yep,
that's luck. Chiefs over Broncos wasn't luck. Jonathan Taylor putting the ball on the ground, that's luck. Okay, it's stupidity on his part, but for the Broncos, it's luck because you didn't do anything to make that happen. And I think that's sort of a key thing. Did you force the error? Did you force it? Or did it just happen? If a field goal misses and saves you and you win, especially one that's in a very makeable range, that happened. That's, you know, that's luck. You didn't really control that. If player puts a ball on the ground, that's obviously luck in your favor. But if you do something to induce it, then it's not luck, it's skill. So
you can't rely on the mistakes of your opponent.
Yeah.
Can't rely on a Jonathan Taylor fumble. Gus Edwards probably won't do that. Gus Edwards is going to have like 1 yard a carry.
Yeah.
So Justin Herbert, get ready. Looks like Ladd
Yeah.
McConkey's going to play again. So you've got some issues here. Before we get to the defense, though, let's get the Troutman stuff in on who can catch us and what it means here. Let's set this up, Mace.
Yeah, we've talked a while about what the Broncos need to do to get in the playoffs. But here's the thing: as we sit here preparing for the Broncos to face the Chargers, the Broncos are the number 6 seed. The Chargers trail them by 1 game. Now, of course, the Chargers can catch them tonight, and then they win the tiebreaker. So, Chargers beat the Broncos. They're the 6. Broncos are back to 7. But right now, the Broncos are the 6. And they've moved their way up. They've won 4 in a row. And that allows you to start thinking less about who's behind you and more about who's in front of you.
I think a little while ago, we were looking to be like, oh, who can catch us? But I think a few weeks ago, we started to look at, all right, who can we catch? And that's kind of what we're doing right now.
The mindset changed.
Yep.
But also, it's an advantage, too, because you always want to be the hunter rather than the hunted. Keep that hunter mindset.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. The predator, not the prey.
Yes.
In this regard.
Yes. Very, very true. Mm-hmm. What's the Troutman, what it means conversation? Let's get into that before we get into the Broncos defense.
Well, let's play this because
it's big picture, right?
It's big picture. It's also the one thing that I've noticed the last couple of weeks is players really appreciating the moment. They've had, of course, the last 2 games were at home, appreciating the atmosphere. I mean, Sunday, there was a moment where the crowd got real quiet. It was actually right after Jonathan Taylor's touchdown and before it got reviewed. But for the most part on Sunday, Cease, that stadium was rocking and rolling. You could feel it shaking under your feet as fans were making that Rocky Mountain Thunder right there in the stadium. It felt like old times. And when Nick Bonito raced upfield after stepping in front of the lateral back to Anthony Richardson, man, if you look at the crowd, it looks like the ocean, like a wave, it's, you don't see that very often. People were so excited, and players kind of get a sense of the fact that something special is happening around here and they're a part of it.
Yeah, it's important, and you can feel the excitement at the stadium, and kind of like, it's not like it's like good pressure, kind of in a way. And everyone's been waiting for it for so long, and it's great to be a part of that. It's also why, like, when I wanted to come back here in the off season, that was part of it too. Like, you want to be part of that group that's like, you resurrect Denver Broncos football. And that's obviously the path that we're on.
What an amazing quote.
Yeah. They wanted to come back, wanted to be a part of resurrecting Denver Broncos football.
Wow. Thanks, Trout.
And I was thinking about that, and Will Lutz wasn't in the locker room, but I wish he had been, because if he had, I probably would have gone up and asked him about that. Because remember, for a moment, it looked like Lutz was signing elsewhere, and then the Broncos did the sales job on him. And you wonder if, in addition to, getting their offer right, you wonder if it wasn't, come on, Will, stay and be a part of getting this back to where it should be.
Right.
And Sean Payton's talked about this too, how Denver's one of those places where it seems to mean more, where it's special, with special environment. You can legitimately say the Broncos have the best fans in the league. Now, I don't think you can say that of every team, every market. It's probably you can say that about 10 or 15, really. They're the best fans, most support in the league. But Denver's one of those places. And it's actually been really cool for players to see that. Now, of course, as Courtland Sutton noted, there can be kind of a dark side to it when Bo Nix is having a rough day throwing 3 picks, and then you're sitting on the bench and you can hear some of the jeers coming from the stands when it happens and some of the nasty things. But that's also part of it as well. People give a damn. There's no indifference here. Like, it's actually testament to the quality of Broncos fans that over the last several years, as the team lost, it didn't become indifference. It came close a few times, and certainly there were games where the no-show count was high, but we can sit here and say it never became indifference. It never became truly not caring. I'll be honest, probably one of the reasons why you and I are gainfully employed talking and writing about the Denver Broncos is because it never became indifference.
Yep.
Because there was still that demand.
No apathy.
Yeah. Apathy's the enemy. When booing, you don't care booing is fine because when fans boo, they care. It's when the booing stops. That's when you worry.
Yep.
If people are there in the stands booing, they give a damn. When the booing stops, it's like, and you may not get it back because people find other things to do. People go on with their lives.
Yep.
Right. It's a big world out there. A lot of things, if you're not watching football on Sunday, believe it or not, there are a lot of things to do.
Especially in Colorado.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's right. How many fans are going to be in LA with you? Sean Payton did talk about that at his presser too. Like, what did he say?
Yeah,
like
he said like 2/3.
Might be a little stadium. Might be a little high. Maybe 50.
This one will be interesting because people bought tickets expecting a Sunday game and it became Thursday. And of course, getting around the Los Angeles area at rush hour is not the easiest thing in the world. And rush hour being like far more than an hour. It's basically the entire afternoon. So I am curious to see what it looks like because probably some of those Bronco fans that are coming in weren't necessarily from nearby. They'd be coming from Fresno and San Diego and Santa Barbara and, up the Central Coast even. People planning on a weekend that didn't happen. So I'm actually curious to see if maybe there are fewer Bronco fans than you might expect because of this relatively late change in the schedule. And also how many empty seats there are, even though this is a game between two teams that are currently comfortably in the postseason.
I'll be curious to see how this team plays Justin Herbert.
Yeah.
Now, the Gus Edwards thing, I don't think Gus runs on him this week. Kamani Vidal, he had the wheel route against him last time for the touchdown. I'm not sure if that happens again, but they haven't been running well without J.K. Dobbins. So this game is really on Justin Herbert, who doesn't throw picks. What's he got, 2 picks all season?
2 picks, one of them Sunday as everything went wrong for the Chargers in getting throttled by Baker Mayfield and the Buccaneers. Until then, he had not thrown an interception since week 2.
Holy cow.
Yes.
Yeah.
He's not making mistakes at all. And that's kind of meshing perfectly with what Jim Harbaugh wants to do. Like kind of the first step for Jim Harbaugh is building an offense that doesn't beat itself with miscues, which is something the Chargers have had problems with. Even as Justin Herbert flourished as a quarterback, this was still a team that would make way too many mistakes. It's making fewer mistakes now. The next step is obviously, I think, getting the ground game going, which is why they may well be in the Ashton Jeanty, O'Marion Hampton conversation too, as we get into the offseason. But
yes.
But the thing is, Justin Herbert is making few mistakes, but he's still doing dynamic things. And PJ Locke talked about the kind of dynamic stuff that you see from Justin Herbert when I asked him about the Chargers quarterback on Tuesday.
Man, it's just ability to run the offense efficiently. Got to kind of switch up the looks on him a little bit. He has a cannon. I mean, he can make every throw. It don't matter, you can run a deep out to the field, and the ball's on the opposite hash, run a deep out to the field, can get that throw there. I actually saw that on film today, and I was like, golly, that's crazy. He actually threw it late, too, and it was still like a dot. So I was like, golly, man, it's super talented, but I think he's a gamer, too, and I think they also know what's at stake, and so we're going to get their best shot. So.
Yep, going to get their best shot from one of the league's best quarterbacks. Now, how is coverage? No Riley Moss in this game. Chris Abrams-Drain's played some really good football. Really good football.
Chris Abrams-Drain, I think you're going to see a lot of. I think they'll probably stick with the whole Damari Mathis base package, Chris Abrams-Drain sub package plan. So maybe this is a game where you end up seeing Damari Mathis if they continue with that. Going back to the whole thing of playing the hits, I think you do that on defense as well. Good news for the Broncos that came down on Wednesday with John Franklin Myers, who had been DNP on Tuesday, being listed as full practice for kind of the estimated injury report on Wednesday. So he is not doubtful. He's good to go. DJ Jones is good to go. Pat Surtain's good to go. So you're full strength on the defensive line. We have most of your parts out there for this game. That's really helpful too.
That's going to be helpful because then you can make them one-dimensional. Now that dimension includes Justin Herbert and Ladd McConkey. Quentin Johnston's okay. With Josh Palmer there as well. So it's like, all right, you're going to make him one-dimensional right into the hands of Justin Herbert. So it's not as much of an advantage. It is schematically, but not as much as it is against like an average quarterback.
Yeah, at the same time, though, they're going to, at tight end, where you can cause problems for the Broncos. Will Dissly, who, go back, had a really good game against the Broncos at one point. He's been surprisingly effective for the Chargers this year. Will Dissly's out with a shoulder injury, didn't practice all week. Hayden Hurst, full practice Tuesday, Wednesday, still listed as questionable. They're going to need him out there. Hurst is, of course, dealing with a hip problem. So that's also where it may come from. They may want to try to get Hayden Hurst involved as well in this offense and get him going, because that's a matchup that maybe the Chargers can try to exploit.
Yeah, and they'll be going for some Stone Smart out there. And top of my head, Stone was a converted quarterback, I believe, if I'm remembering correctly. So, like, you got a tight end that knows how to get open, knows how to find a soft spot. And what do you have against the Buccaneers? Would you have like 6 grabs, something like that?
I believe so, yes.
A little Stone Smart out there. Quentin Johnston, 5 grabs on 6 targets for 50 yards. Smart also lost a fumble. So, hey, if he's catching passes, then start stripping it away from him.
Yep. We're going to be talking about fumbles again, aren't we? After now, of course, like a couple of those fumbles last week, one was the lateral and one was the Jonathan Taylor putting the ball on the ground. So, again, little bit of the lateral wasn't luck. Dick Benito read it perfectly. Jonathan Taylor was luck. But sometimes you need that.
Sometimes you need that. That's for sure. So, yeah, against this team, you should be able to bottle them up. But offensively, you've got to get it done so that these guys are always going to hang around you. I don't think you run away from the Chargers score-wise. So it's like 31-0. Like, I don't think Jim Harbaugh would allow that. So if they're always hanging around, Mace, you just have to keep the pace and distance yourself. Start hot, and then make sure you keep your foot on the gas and don't let Herbert get back into this, because he can.
Yeah, he like PJ Locke was saying. I mean, he's going to make throws all over the place. There's not, from one hash up, to the opposite sideline. He's going to do that. This is another thing. You have to defend the whole field with Justin Herbert, and that's another thing when you talk about Chris Abrams-Drain potentially being out there quite a bit, Damari Mathis as well. There's not a moment where you can breathe, because the whole field is always as disposable because of the arm that he has.
Mm-hmm. Yep. Keep your head on a swivel. Keep communicating on that back end too, especially with Chris Abrams-Drain out there. I think the older players, when Levi's out there, and I'm not making excuses for Levi, but if Wallace is out there, then he's a veteran. You think he knows that. But if the young guys out there, maybe you got to say more. You got to give him more of a heads up. And Chris Abrams-Drain can make some plays.
Yeah. We got to see the playmaking ability in the pro level rather than the college level, but he seems to be around. He's resilient. Doesn't get scared easily. That's another thing too. It's not a case where the eyes are as big as dinner plates.
Yes. Yep. And can Nick Benito get another one? Can he get another sack?
Did you see that? Did you see that thing with NFL executives? Like, they were asked about like award winners, and they were polled. I think it was either NFL.com, ESPN.com, and one of them was Defensive Player of the Year, and they went for TJ Watt over Nick Benito. Pat Surtain also in the conversation as well, but Nick Benito nowhere near the conversation, even though he's got a stat line that hasn't been seen since a DPOY JJ Watt back in 2014. Just saying.
Yeah, and TJ's hurt.
Yeah,
so
that doesn't matter.
All right, start fast, finish strong, get the win, and guarantee your spot in the postseason. Mace, I guarantee you'll be having a great time at the game. I also guarantee I'll be emotional on the post-game show. So Thursday's a big day for both of us.
Game day, man. Gotta love it. And then a mini buy. Guys talk in the locker room about kind of the value of that mini buy, even though it's a mini buy because they got the game the following Saturday, so they're back at practice on Christmas Eve next Tuesday.
All right.
And Christmas Day.
Mm-hmm.
Yep. Christmas Day is work day.
Welcome to the NFL.
Yep. Mm-hmm.
Mm-hmm. There we go.
That's the lump of coal in my stocking, but that's okay. It's what we signed on for.
Yes, very much so. All right, Mace, before we're out of here, how could folks help us out on YouTube?
Like,
comment,
share,
subscribe,
hit that notification bell
so that you
never
miss vid. That's right. He's Andrew Mason. You follow him on all the socials at Mace Denver. I'm at Cecil Lammey saying OBT's BFD. Thank you all very much for watching. Stay tuned, and would you please, as always, we just ask, can you do one thing? Can you go ahead and stay frosty?